Head over to the brand new FriendoShop.com and get your latest Friendo merchandise. While you're there, use code FriendoFriday to get 20% off. And don't forget to pick up Don't Interrupt the Game t-shirt right now. FriendoShop.com. Hey, Friendo, Steve here.
And Larson.
And welcome back to Going In Rock Count Out. It's been a little while. I think we did one of these like maybe a month or two ago.
Might be longer than that.
Well, anyways, this is the show. It's like a top 10 list show, but in podcast form. So you can enjoy it on the subway, on the bus, in your car, or while you're, trying to get to sleep or whatever. This is where we're going to have an in-depth, beefy discussion as a top 10 list, as opposed to a highly produced thing.
Yeah, we don't produce stuff anymore.
We don't produce stuff anymore. I don't have the attention span for it. So this episode of Count Out is going to focus on, given that all these returns are just coming back to WWE left and right with rumors of more returns on the horizon, these are people who are not going to come back to WWE. Or at least with a pretty high degree. I feel like the top 7 or so of this list are concrete. A couple
you mean
of
7
them
through 1, yeah.
7 through 1. Yeah. But a couple of them are I could maybe see them.
Maybe someone might return for a Hall of Fame induction or.
Yeah, that's not what we're talking about. We're not talking about Hall of Fame. Yeah. Because there's definitely a name on here. At least one name is going to be back for a Hall of Fame induction. We know that. Mm-hmm. I think if you kept them on here, I don't know. Anyways, so interestingly, before we get kicked off with this list of people who are probably never going to come back to WWE, we did something fairly similar to this in more produced form back. This says 6 years ago. So in the year, I don't know what that was.
2016. That would have been 6 years ago. Yeah, 2016.
And a couple of the names on here, these are wrestlers who should not come back to WWE.
Oh, as opposed to will not.
Right. Exactly. We were just suggesting it at the time. Now we're being firm with it.
This is concrete.
This is concrete. So back then we said Goldberg should not come back to WWE. Boy, we're wrong on that one because he came back and man, he made a name for himself again. Let's see here. MVP. He's done fantastic work.
Yeah, MVP's been great since he's come back. Yeah.
The Hardy Boys. We'll revisit them. Mr. Kennedy. He never came back.
Never came back.
I don't think he would either. I'm making fun of Triple H's gum chewing. I think was the, nailed that coffin in. We had some honorable mentions as well. Tyrus. That dude ain't coming back. He could be on this list right here.
Could be.
Christy Hemme, for some reason. I don't know why we mentioned her. I'm just sort of scrolling through this. Our number one was Scott Steiner, but he's not these are guys who are going to be potentially active.
In ring competition.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Yeah.
So let's go ahead and dive into it. Let's just start off with number 10, the man of the hour. Yes. The man of the hour, Phil Brooks, CM Punk. What's your reasoning for putting him on this list, man?
So, it's the backstory, essentially. The acrimonious split in 2014. He walked out on the Raw right after the Royal Rumble. He got fired on his wedding day officially. Shot hard on the company, and Chris Amon, the WWE's ringside physician, on episode Art of Wrestling, as well as in 2014. There was the lawsuit, all that stuff. There's that, which that alone, could foster some resentment from Phil towards WWE. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then Triple H has never really been a Phil Brooks guy. There is the story that Triple H really wanted to push Sheamus as the guy when Punk was at his most popular rather than Punk. And, seemingly Punk resented the fact that he was going to have to face Triple H at WrestleMania 30. That's just tip of the iceberg, seemingly. There's a lot of issues. Listen to those episodes of Art of Wrestling. A lot of issues. Granted, it was 8 years ago. But it would take a lot of mending of fences, I feel like. From a business perspective, I understand Triple H wanting to make that phone call. But given the issues that Punk just had in AEW, he's in his mid-40s, coming off 2 pretty significant injuries within the last year, currently recuperating from one. It's going to take a serious monetary investment to bring CM Punk in. That's just from the WWE side. From Phil's point of view, depending on the nature of the buyout of his AEW deal, he might not need the money. This experience might just have soured him on professional wrestling entirely. And he seemed really happy. You look at the clips of him doing the MMA commentary, he just seems like he's perfectly happy doing that. So it feels like there's a situation where a lot of things have to fall into place for this to even be a possibility. I'm not discounting it as a possibility. A lot of things have to fall in place. I don't know if it's going to happen.
The biggest roadblock, I would think, would be twofold. Number one, the injuries. That's a real thing. That dude couldn't jump in a crowd without breaking his foot. So that's a big one. I think the other thing would be him not wanting to deal with WWE. I don't think it was just Vince McMahon he had a problem with. I think it was obvious he had a problem with Triple H as well.
Yeah.
And perhaps because Triple H has been known to mend fences. So maybe, but also there's the hypocrisy of it. Right after Triple H took over, what did CM Punk say at that Comic-Con? Oh, the culture there hasn't changed. Nothing's going to change about that place. He'd have to eat quite a bit of crow to go back to WWE.
Yes.
And I wouldn't put it past him because look, we could all be hypocrites, man. Every man has his price. I think there might be some motivation there from him though, that might help ease the pain of being labeled a hypocrite. And that's simply to stick it to AEW.
Yeah.
I could totally see him feeling like he was the victim in all of this brawl out thing and him wanting to go out of pro wrestling on a higher note. And more importantly, Larson,
on his terms. And
well, you were doing the sticking. Yeah, sticking it to him.
stick it to
But
AEW.
Yeah, on his terms. Absolutely. Who wouldn't want to go out on their own terms? It was a really ugly way that he went out. And, and maybe he'd want to do that. Now, maybe if he still wanted to wrestle and he felt like he could, I mean, there's like one other option for him, and I think given the injuries thing, I don't think it's possible. That's New Japan.
Yeah, he'd have to go if that were the choice. It'd be on a significantly reduced schedule because he was wrestling almost every week.
Yeah, no, that would be done with. And again, if he wants to eat a little bit of crow and sing the praises of WWE, I mean, I don't know how he would do that. I really don't. Especially when confronted with the fact that they still run Saudi Arabia shows. And there's any number of practices that he would probably still find difficult to come to terms with. Mm-hmm. So I would say there's like a 20% chance he would go back, and even
I was going to say 15, at best. Yeah,
we're in the same ballpark there. But again, these days in wrestling, nothing really shocks me anymore. So if he did go back, I wouldn't really be necessarily shocked, just a bit surprised.
Indeed.
Let's carry on with number 9.
9. John
Moxley. So
I see what he did there with the carry on.
Oh, carry on. Yeah, carry on.
Good.
But yeah.
Good.
So anyways, Mox, of course, spoke extensively about his creative frustrations working under Vince McMahon after he left WWE and he debuted for AEW at the conclusion of Double or Nothing 2019. There was some speculation that he might rejoin his Shield brothers, Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns, in the near future. Did you write this? Is this new or is this from something else?
No, there was just articles about some of the articles about him signing a new deal was mentioning speculation as in people, wistfully pining for the days of a Shield reunion in the year 2022.
Oh, then you continue here. That talk was squashed when AEW announced that he had signed a new 5-year. I'm like Ron Burgundy. I'll just read whatever. Basically he signed a new 5-year deal. A 5-year deal, which basically is going to make him a featured attraction in AEW, but also backstage having a heavy influence, as a coach, mentor, et cetera, a lot contractually obligated locker room leader, if you will.
Yes.
Yeah.
Still better than a self-appointed one, though.
Right. Yeah.
According to Chris Jericho.
Jericho and Cody Rhodes. Yeah.
Yeah. So that'll keep him in AEW through 2027. So next 5 years. So Mox spoke with Sports Illustrated about this new deal, saying, quote, "I don't plan on going anywhere else. It's the best job in the world. I'm very lucky to have it. In AEW, all I worry about is wrestling. That's my focus, and that's my joy. I love storytelling. I love promos. I love wrestling. I love coming up with ideas for other people. I love learning. For me, it's a perfect fit. When I started in 2004, there was WWE and some other indies, but there wasn't much money in them. there was a big gap between when you first started and actually having any success in the business. Now there are so many tools and so many promotions and such a great fan base, and wrestling has evolved so much. It's a great thing for fans and the wrestlers. No one is shoving a script in your face telling you what you have to say. I wish I had this opportunity in AEW when I was 25. I hope the young people at AEW understand how cool this place is.
So yeah, 2027, I don't know. He's like what, 36, 37 now?
He's 36 right now. Yeah.
Okay,
so he'll
36.
be 40, 41, maybe 42, depending on when his birthday lands.
Which is not an outlandish age to pick up a new contract in WWE. For one thing, this dude is for certain going to be back for a Hall of Fame induction at the very least. I think that's a given. I think that Mox seems like a amiable enough fella, you know, to do that and understand that, hey, this is, you know, going to make a lot of people happy. But that's like ages from now. I don't know what the future holds for him after, 2027. But with Mox, and he seems to have had a decent relationship with Triple H. He wasn't above making fun of him a bit in his book. He seemed to take issue a little bit when Triple H pulled the Shield aside before they debuted and said, "Oh, you guys, there's this term. Have you heard it before? Paradigm shift." And Mox felt like it was a bit condescending.
Yeah,
for him to say that, but otherwise he seems to speak not necessarily highly, but not the way he does about Vince McMahon, where he was just confounded. Like, what is this guy telling me to do right now? Wear a silly hat. He doesn't understand me, but Vince insisted that he knew Mox better than Mox knew himself.
Exactly.
And so it is a different situation there. That being said, 2027 is a long ways off. And I always get the feeling with Mox that he loves wrestling, but also I don't know if he'd want, I mean, maybe he'd do a part-time gig with WWE. He doesn't, I don't know. He seems like a guy who'd much rather, you know, when all is said, when 2027 comes around, just go away and raise his kid and show up from time to time.
Exactly.
At wherever he wants to go and not be locked down by a WWE contract. So
exactly. He seems to enjoy the freedom to do what he wants to do.
That seems to be his main motivating factor.
Yeah. And even though Vince isn't in charge anymore in WWE, and, you know, kind of regardless of his relationship with Triple H, there still is, it might not be as rigid as it once was. There's still very much in structure. Within WWE. You know, I'm sure if he were to go back, he'd have more say in his creative. He would have a lot more say, I'm sure, and you wouldn't have scripts shoved in his face. I doubt that would happen. That being said, he wouldn't have the freedom to go wrestle anywhere he wanted to. Yeah. You know, and I think to a certain degree, some of that freedom now isn't what it was in his previous AEW deals, kind of my understanding. But nonetheless, he can still wrestle for New Japan. Odds are he wouldn't be able to do that in WWE. Although with Carl Anderson apparently wrestling in December, who knows over there.
And in Tokyo Dome as well. I don't know. Again, 2027 is a long ways off. I don't even know if we're going to be doing this in 2027. I hope so. I love doing it. but I mean,
he's already looking at retirement in 2026.
Dude, that video was from 6 years ago. That's not. I was reading this thing on I think because I watch a lot of videos about YouTube, like how to YouTube better.
Yeah.
And one of them was talking about like the average life of a creator is like, not life, but you know, their creative life on YouTube is like between 5 and 10 years.
Oh wow.
And I'm like, we blasted past that one.
Yeah.
But it's a long ways from now, and who knows what the future holds. But at that point, you know, I'd be shocked if he did go back to WWE. It would definitely be on like a Brock schedule, and it might be on a per appearance thing. Hey, I'll show up for this, but then, and on top of that, the flip side of that is we already see WWE under Triple H loosening up their restrictions. You just mentioned Carl Anderson, who might be on the same show as Kenny Omega, and at the same time, you got AJ Styles in that little promo video they cut in the, you know, in their trailer or whatever. Who knows that AJ Styles might accompany Carl Anderson in New Japan? It wouldn't shock me. It might surprise me a little bit, but at this point, it wouldn't shock me at all. And so who knows where that's going to lead with WWE by 2027. That is a long ways from now, and I think a lot of things can change.
That's definitely true. Definitely true. Let's move on to number 8, Steve.
Number 8, Deonna Purrazzo. So obviously right now she's a heavily featured attraction in Impact Wrestling. She is one of the foundations, the cornerstone. She was their champion there for a long time. She actually did sign with WWE in 2018 before she was released in April of 2020. A month later, she made her debut in Impact. And she appeared. She's talked about her time in WWE a couple times. She appeared on an episode of The Sessions back in September of 2021, so a little over a year ago, and said this about a possible WWE return. She said, "I think that was always my goal as a kid. I didn't know all these other promotions existed. I was a WWE fan. For me, the goal was to always be on WrestleMania and be the women's champion. There will always be a part of me that's like, I wish it turned out differently. Never say never, and if there's an opportunity, maybe I would go. It drives me every day to work hard to get that phone call and then be like, oh, me? The difficult one? I don't know. I'm going to have to think about that. It's a driving force for them to want me back, definitely. I won't say no because never say never, but sometimes I feel like, no, fuck you guys. You had me for so many years, even before I was signed. For so many years, they could have done something, and I was always put on the back burner. Now I'm thriving." Additionally, she talked to Busted Open earlier this year, talks about being in the WWE system. These transcripts are from Wrestling Inc. The one that I just wrote was from Fightful, the transcripts. She said, "I think as we get older and experience more things, like my dream was always to wrestle at WrestleMania and be at the time the Divas champion. That's all I knew in wrestling growing up, so that was my ultimate goal. Then I got there to WWE and it was like, I don't like anything about this system. It's just not a conducive environment for me, and my dream changed. Now I just want to go somewhere that's going to appreciate me for me and give me an opportunity to wrestle, see what happens." What's most notable about this is that she was under the guy who's in charge now. She was there in NXT with Triple H. It's kind of rare for somebody to speak so negatively about their time in developmental in NXT under Triple H. I remember they tried they did the Virtuosa thing that was seemed to be music related, but at the same time they were doing a math thing. So
yeah, it was all over the place. It seemed more like an approach to the gimmick like we would see now, where you have Axiom, who likes math but also comic books.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
even before she signed the deal, she was doing per appearance matches here and there.
Yeah,
I believe for a couple of years prior to signing the contract. And despite all the time there, it just seemed like they never found anything for her on a consistent basis.
Yeah.
And then she leaves and goes to Impact and shows what she could really do, and she's great. She's a phenomenal wrestler, a phenomenal talent.
Yeah.
And the fact that she was in WWE for so long and they couldn't figure anything out is really strange.
Yeah. Interestingly, just more recent than that, apparently when Axiom debuted, Denise Salcedo had tweeted out, "The Axiom entrance was pretty cool. He's a mathematical superhero." And then Chelsea Green, who's obviously really close friends with Deonna Purrazzo, said, "I'm dead. This is everything Deonna Purrazzo pitched." And then Deonna Purrazzo tweeted, "It only took them 4 years to understand." So yeah, she's still seemingly a bit on the, not afraid to be a bit snarky with the WWE about, man, I did this, I pitched this, and now you're using it for Axiom. I'm assuming it would have worked better for Deonna Purrazzo than it is for Axiom, because the whole superhero math wizard is stupid. I'm not a huge fan of it.
Yeah, it's not really working for me. Get rid of the mask for Axiom. Let him be a kid again.
Let him be a kid again. Yeah, exactly.
Yes, exactly.
So yeah, I would be kind of surprised. I'd be surprised, but again, it's the kind of thing where, Triple H right now, this is an interesting caveat getting into these next batch of names who I really honestly think will not find their way.
Chance.
There's one name in the rest of them that I look at that I'm like, maybe, but we'll get to that in a second.
Yeah.
She's sort of one that maybe if Triple H was like, "Hey, I'm sorry, we messed up on you. I love what you do in Impact. You've really elevated your status. We'd love to have you in. Here's what we would do with you." Maybe because she's talked about it being a dream as a kid. Everybody likes that challenge. Everybody, if you have that thing, it's like, man, I would love to get this right. And maybe if she was wanted enough, as she said, then she'd be back. But evidently, according to her own words, it would take quite a bit of convincing to go there.
Yeah, understandably too, based on her previous experience. I would get that. Yeah.
Yeah. Before we get into the rest of them, let's take a quick break here to get a word in from our sponsor, ExpressVPN. So we've talked about the importance of using a VPN to protect your online security, but choosing a VPN you can trust is just as important.
That's true, Steve. That's true. And we trust the brands we recommend here on the show. And after using ExpressVPN for a while, I could say that ExpressVPN is the best VPN out there.
Dude, there's a lot of like cheap or free VPNs out there that make money off selling your data to advertisers. That's true. But not ExpressVPN. ExpressVPN doesn't log your online activity. In fact, they've developed trusted server technology that makes their VPN servers incapable of storing your data. They can't even do it. It's not capable.
Incapable, you say?
Yeah.
Capable. Wow. ExpressVPN is fast, too, because it now uses Lightway, a new VPN. Yeah, Lightway, a new VPN
sound
protocol.
Effect I make for Lightway.
Yes, exactly. Lightway is a new VPN protocol that makes user speeds faster than ever. So fast, in fact, that I could stream HD video with zero buffering. ExpressVPN is also extremely easy to use. You just fire up the app and tap one button to connect.
So protect yourself with a VPN that we use and trust. Use our link expressvpn.com/GIR today. And get an extra 3 months free on a 1-year package. That's expressvpn.com/GIR. Visit expressvpn.com/GIR to learn more. All right, man, let's continue on this list. Real quick, before we continue, though, I want to mention we got a brand new shop, man. It's friendoshop.com. And here's the thing. We had other shops before. We switched over to this one because it has like a massive catalog of stuff. Items, and they've got on sleeve printing. I just got this in today. This is the hoodie that I got today, right? It's a Friendo Club hoodie. It's available right now. And the brightness on the digital print is really bright and nice and crisp.
I can see that, yeah.
And it's honestly the comfiest hoodie I've had. And here's the thing. I know I sound like a salesman right now, but you know this. I had actually ordered a different one. We're going to offer a different one. And when I got it in, it was a bit faded, and I was like, no, we're not doing that. And so I switched it out with another item, and then I just got the sample of that today. Oh my God, it's great because the other one had polyester. I'm learning from this Friendo shop stuff, man. This one is cotton.
The fabric matters when you're doing the
fabric
printing.
matters, exactly.
Matters.
So friendoshop.com. Right now we got Black Friday deals. Use the code Friendo Friday. We got a ton of new merch over there, and I'm going to be adding a lot more over the coming weeks and months. So check that out.
Yeah, be on the lookout.
Let's dive back into this, man. Number 7. Austin Aries. You guys remember him? He had signed with WWE in 2016, and he was gone by July 2017. However, during his time there, it wasn't like he wasn't used. He was used. I would say it was a semi-successful run in NXT. He had a title shot. He had some actual feuds there. He did have, I think he had like an orbital injury.
Yeah. In a match against Nakamura, he suffered a broken orbital bone. And then rather than just sit on the shelf, he did commentary for 205, and he was actually pretty good at it.
I thought he was really good at that, yeah. He ended up doing his probably highest profile match. He was one of the they brought him into the 205 division because that had already started by the time he was back from injury. And I thought that was a really cool move because we were both big Austin Aries fans at the time. And he had a match there at WrestleMania 33 in the pre-show, but it was a stellar match, him and Pac now.
That was a good feud.
It was a really good feud, yeah. As I stated before, it kind of feels like Triple H is going after people who are, or he seems to have an eye. Like, for example, if he does end up bringing Cardona and Chelsea Green, if that rumor is true, that he likes what Cardona's doing on the indie circuit, and they let him use Cardona as the name, which Matt Cardona has said he'd want to do, even if they're like, hey, dude, you have to be Zack Ryder, but you can do everything you've been doing on the indie circuit. And he can find sort of like an ironic way to use it, maybe. It seems like Triple H has his eye on what people are doing on the independent circuit.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Austin Aries isn't really a guy who you hear much about these days on the independent circuit. You
don't hear a lot about him for his wrestling, that's for sure.
That's a great way to put it. So like he does stuff for Control Your Narrative on the indies. He's got like a book about his vegan diet, and he's super anti-vax. Like if you look at his Twitter feed, it is so anti-vax, which if that's his belief, whatever, that's his belief. But I don't know if WWE would look at this and be like, this guy, this is the guy here. And I don't think he would want to go to WWE, to be honest
Probably
with you.
not.
He
Probably
talked
not.
about this a lot over the years.
Here's another thing to consider, and I don't know how much bearing it would have, but you have to go back to his finish in Impact Wrestling, his match against Johnny Impact, where he lost. As soon as that 3 count happened, he just got right back up and walked backstage.
So he even has admitted that he's been considered difficult by some, and maybe that's a little bit of that. So he has spoken about his release. He was on a podcast on something called The Room, or In the Room. Sorry, In the Room. We have some transcripts here.
Is this like the Control Your Narrative room?
I think it's in a different room.
Oh, all right.
This is not in the rant room. No. He says, I can give you 6 different answers depending on what talking point I want to use. But at the end of the day, it wasn't my decision there. It was nothing I asked for. It was nothing that I was given a heads up that was coming. The question is probably better to ask Vince or the people that were in charge. He says, I'll be honest. I came in as a short, old white dude. I'm 5'8", 5'9" in my boots. I was 38 years old. I came in basically on secret, double probation. That's what I was told. I came in being told that, not that I wasn't welcome, but that I had to be on my quote-unquote best behavior. Despite all of that and them really not having a plan for me, I get my eye hole broken, and I offer to do commentary, and I spin that into the main roster run on a WrestleMania match. I did all that in 18 months. I don't know what else I was supposed to do, what people were expecting. He says, I don't think walking in there, I felt like this was going to be a fit for the next 10 years of my career. I think we both went in there with some reservations, and I think we both proved each other right as far as what they thought of me and what I thought of the system. Ultimately, it was their decision to move on, and I can only go by what I'm told. I'm sure I can be a pain in the ass because I have my own opinions. Those aren't always welcome in a high-pressure situation where they're just trying to dump out content. I've used the analogy, when you're hired there, they want you to be a line cook. I'm a gourmet chef. When I'm trying to add some of my own ideas on how the recipe can be improved, they say they're McDonald's. We sell 1 billion. So yeah, it just seems like, at the time before Austin Aries said a lot more stuff.
Yeah.
That it's so difficult. Sometimes it's just so difficult to look beyond certain things that it's like, I can't anymore, dude. But the dude, you say what you will, he had charisma. He had that camera presence that like a lot of people don't have. A great, I'll say this, a great wrestler in the ring, and a really, really, really good promo. There just seems to be some baggage that comes with that I think would preclude him from going there and WWE from even wanting him there.
Totally. Yeah, that would seem to be the case. Yeah.
I think I was fairly diplomatic with that, right?
You did a pretty good job of being diplomatic there, yes.
All right, good. I try, man. I try. I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. Anyways, let's do this next one, number 6.
Let's see if you can be as diplomatic with this one, okay?
Oh, okay. No, I can. I can be. I can be.
All right.
Do you know why Enzo Amore, real one, Enzo, you know why he's not coming back to WWE?
Why is that, Steve?
He ain't coming back because WWE's a cup of haters. They cup of haters. They don't want none. They cup of haters. So let me ask you this. Do you think, just look, man, we're outsiders, right? But
Absolutely.
you talk to Triple H on a regular basis here on the show.
Yeah.
Do you think Triple H was ever really an Enzo Amore guy?
I feel like Triple H can be, because the rap on Enzo was that he could be a bit difficult. I think overall that was kind of the deal. He got kicked out of the locker room at least once, if not twice, or off the bus or something like that. Yeah. So, he wasn't universally well liked by the rest of the locker room.
Right.
A reputation, or at least the perception, that he's a bit difficult. And I think Triple H would deal with such things if that person can make the company a lot of money. And when Enzo and Cass were the tag team, apparently they were making the company quite a bit of money because they were selling merch, and a ton of it.
And dude, they were a ratings thing. I mean, that's one thing about Enzo. Say what you will about him. When he got on the microphone, people tuned in for that.
That is true.
He was a 10 promo. He really was.
Yeah, he was. But even that's still a balancing act. If the headache is still more of an issue that it's worth dealing with, despite the money that's being made for the company, at the end of the day, like any executive, I think if you got someone who's a good performer, regardless of the field, they might be a bit of a headache from time to time, but as long as the headache doesn't get in the way of the work, doesn't get in the way of producing results, then people can deal with it essentially. But if that's not the case, then I think then it's not,
The final straw, the final straw seemed to be there were some allegations that were thrown his way that were eventually dropped because of insufficient evidence, according to the Phoenix police. I mean, and that's one thing, I don't know how much. So this investigation was happening. Allegedly, he did not tell WWE that was happening.
But he was aware of the investigation and didn't tell them.
He was aware of the investigation. He didn't tell them, and he was still on TV and stuff. And that's a big no-no. And so, I don't know. Again, it's one of those things where I get the feeling that if he had, right now he's doing work in MLW, and MLW is one of those promotions that a lot of people sing its praises, but it has such a hard time sort of getting any buzz going, in sort of the internet wrestling community. Yeah. Because there is so many other things out there that it doesn't do any one thing that really stands out.
To really separate itself from the competition. Yeah.
Right. I mean, for example, like Lucha Underground, for example, which MLW is sort of incorporating some of that stuff. Lucha Underground was a very unique presentation.
It really was.
And to this day, people still sing its praises. Impact has been Impact for a long time, and they do what they do. New Japan is very unique in the way it presents it now over the past 5 years to the American audiences. But MLW really doesn't do any one thing better than anybody else that everybody's like, oh, wow, watch this. This is good. Even though it's fine programming. I've watched plenty of MLW. Well, Enzo is in MLW, and it's not like his presence there has elevated the company to that degree, or his promos there. I watched one of his promos from not too long ago, and it seemed honestly like the content just seemed like, and I'm trying to be diplomatic here. The content seemed like the kind of thing that I don't know if WWE would want to touch that. And so I just don't know. I mean, if he had been on sort of, I guess this is not meant to be condescending, but best behavior since he was released.
Yeah.
And he had turned his perception around, like his buddy Cass, who I'm kind of surprised. I don't know what the situation was when he ended up going to AEW. If WWE was an option, it damn well should have been.
I know.
Because Cass is in phenomenal shape. It seems like he's really tried and succeeded in getting his life back together after some substance abuse issues. And AEW snatched him up. And I don't think he's had a match there yet.
No, I don't think he has. Not on TV. Maybe he has on Darker Elevation or something like that.
And
I
don't know.
To counter, or to speak of Enzo not doing the thing seemingly Cass has done, he had that stunt where he showed up, was it SummerSlam or something like that?
Yeah, that's
out of the
right.
Crowd.
Yeah.
There is the Ring of Honor show where he and Cass did the invasion thing.
That was like people knew. Ring of Honor knew about that though.
Yeah, but the Guerrillas of Destiny didn't apparently.
Right. I think the New Japan contingent didn't know about that. Yeah.
But that was kind of like critically panned.
It was. If he gets knocked for that, it'd be kind of unfair though.
Okay. There's a couple other instances where he hasn't necessarily ingratiated himself into the goodwill of wrestling fandom, so to say.
If the point is he hasn't been associated with high quality creative stuff that would hey, Triple H would be looking, oh wow, look what he's doing out there. Then your point is absolutely correct. You're right.
Yeah.
But yeah, he hasn't been doing any of that stuff. I mean, he's in really good shape. Like he got for a second, he got massively jacked.
Yeah, he was huge.
And I don't really know that that's still the case, but yeah, I don't know. He was really good on the mic, but I don't know that anybody. There's a ton of people that fans in general you hear. Oh man, I'd love to see them back. And I've never heard anybody really talk about that with him.
Not really. No.
It's kind of interesting.
It is. Let's talk about our next person here on the list, number 5, Steve.
5, Kenta, also known as
Kenta's great.
Hideo Itami during his time in NXT. And did he make it? They put him on main roster, didn't they? Yeah, they put him on main roster, I think.
He was on 205 briefly.
Was it 205?
Yeah.
When he was doing the I Want Respect thing, that wasn't just straight up main roster?
I thought it was just 205.
Oh, okay. Maybe you're right.
2019 seems like so long ago. So he signed with WWE in 2014. Huge signing at the time.
Yeah, big time.
And was released in early 2019. And since then, Kenta has been pretty darn vocal about his frustrations while in WWE. This he had to say in an interview with New Japan shortly after his return. Quote, "It's hard to put into words, but it was a very tough 5 years. I got hurt. And beyond that, I was really grasping for something during that whole time. It's like I came into the company to bring my style of wrestling worldwide. But what that actually became was bending and adapting to what the company wanted. That's important in a sense, but the strength and aggression that I bring to the table got lost. That's a real shame. One person there might tell you, do it this way. Then the other would say, no, do it like this. That meant my own personal vision just crumbled away. There are people who can do very well in that environment, but I just couldn't. So when that what next question came up, I didn't ask anybody else what they thought. I just decided to focus on what I wanted to do. Otherwise, there's no point. Of course, you want to succeed in everything first time and keep moving forward, but life isn't like that. You take your knocks, and then you have to learn from that. Otherwise, your experience is pointless. In the end, I have zero regrets about my decisions. My style isn't really like the WWE style. There's an aggression there that's closer to strong style. My matches evolved in a more thrilling way. I think if I could fit in here, I'll be able to awaken something that's been dormant for a long time." And of course, Kenta went on his book tour.
Yeah.
Prior to the
wildly
release
hilarious.
It was hilarious. It was great. All the backstage promos he was doing were outstanding. So Chris Charlton, who does commentary for New Japan, translated some of the passages of the book and put those translations on Twitter. Here's a couple interesting bits. Kenta spent his first month at WWE just watching people train. Sat next to Kevin Owens and Finn Balor. That's what Kenta had to say. I wanted to get used to the different ring, and they wouldn't let me. Still, now I wonder what the point of that month was. He said, one producer would tell you one thing, another something completely different. End up wrestling, not thinking about the people, but the producers, which seems wrong. Wrestling is a living thing. There is no right or wrong answer. And then Kenta describes missing a springboard dropkick and getting concussed in his first taping, and likened that to getting the yips in gymnastics or baseball. Says he developed a serious mental block and still suffered from it through the 2019 G1 as well. And Kenta also took to Twitter to voice his frustrations about not being able to use his very own finishing move while in WWE because someone else was using it, saying, quote, "Let the world know one of my worst experiences in this business is that I was not allowed to use my finishing move for 4 years, a move which I created on my own. What a life." Of course, that move is go to sleep, and Phil Brooks used that.
That's correct. Yeah. This is the one name that I actually feel, because of the change in regime, and on top of that, a lot of the stuff, or he was injured for a lot of his run in NXT.
He was.
I don't think there would be nearly, if he were to join, let's say, Judgment Day with Finn Balor, I think he would be wildly successful. I think that if Triple H saw what he's doing there in New Japan, and pitched him on it, like I said earlier, he went to WWE in the first place because he thought, hey, I want to make it here. And I have no idea if it was his dream or whatever. That's a different thing. But sometimes if you fail at something, it bugs you to get it right. And if Triple H said, hey, I want you to be the Kenta we see in New Japan here in America. Don't worry about language stuff, talk in your native tongue the same way Asuka does. Asuka talks a little bit of English, but they've been letting her say a lot more promos in Japanese.
Kenta was a very good promo in NXT.
He was, yeah. And so
And he's still a great promo. He's a great promo.
he's fantastic. Whatever you want to do, you do. And the style here on main roster, I know he's talking about NXT, but they're loosening up the style, so it's not necessarily a WWE style. I think if pitched correctly, I don't know that he would be like, no, I'm never going back there again. And I think that WWE, if they were smart, like he's doing everything that they would be stupid to turn down if there was a mutual interest there, because he's doing really cool shit. And that's the bottom line is I think that Paul Levesque wants shit that's really cool to be in the company.
Yeah.
It would be, were his experiences so, did they sour him so much?
I mean, he also talked about his shoulder surgery and how he thought it, whoever performed the surgery. Now, I don't know if that's someone WWE recommended or not, didn't do a very good job. I mean, there's a lot of other things, a lot of other aspects to it. Maybe individually, none of them would necessarily say I'm disqualifying WWE from ever being my home promotion again, but maybe collectively, maybe. We don't know.
Yeah.
It's a situation where
yeah.
It's just too many things. Granted, it was, he signed 8 years ago, so
Yeah.
a lot of things maybe have changed. Who knows?
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, that is one thing to consider also when looking at these is just how much things change under Triple H as opposed to Vince McMahon. But yeah, I mean, it's not like he says, yeah, fuck Vince McMahon in any of this. There seemed to be a lot of stuff, but honestly, like, okay, he gets a concussion at his first taping. That happens in wrestling, and that sucks, but it's not like it's anybody's fault. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The producer stuff, but if they tell him, hey, you're coming straight to main roster, you're going to join Judgment Day, for example, and you're going to be palling around with Finn Balor, you'll be amongst friends, and you'll be immediately on main roster. I don't know if they would be able to prove to him, then I don't see anything that's so like, oh, fuck that, I'll never do it again. Even though he does have a list of, it's just a bad experience. But again, sometimes the bad stuff fades away.
That's true.
Let's talk about number 4.
Or
Sin Cara, aka, so there's 2 Sin Caras. This is the first Sin Cara, formerly known as
second Sin Cara.
This was the second one?
Hunico was the second Sin Cara.
Who was the first one?
Sin Cara.
Wait a second. The first one doesn't have a different name?
Okay.
So the guy the guy getting into the fights was
that was Hunico.
That was this guy, right?
Yeah.
But he was the second one?
He was the second one.
Okay, well, yeah, this is the one I'm talking about. Yeah. So you talk about a little bit about Sin Cara.
I believe it's the second one. Got a lot of fights. A lot of fights. Yeah. So Mystico was the first Sin Cara.
Okay.
I believe.
Oh, okay, you're right. You're right. You're absolutely right. You're right. Yes, this is the second but longest tenured Sin Cara.
Yeah, because Mystico came and then got hurt, and then they had Hunico wear the mask. I think that's how it went.
But then this guy was also Mystico. It says one of his ring names was Mystico.
Wow, that's really confusing then.
Talk about the fights.
All right, he got a lot of fights. A lot of fights.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is confusing. Now I want to figure out look into the
You want me to talk about the fights or look into Sin Cara?
You talk about the fights. You put these notes in here. I'll look at the
so check this out. Back in 2014, I never knew about this one. I knew about the Simon Gotch one. That's the only one I knew about. But there's 2 others. One was alleged. Another one seemed to be a little less alleged. So back in 2014, Sin Cara apparently took issue with Drew McIntyre only shaking hands backstage with legends and top stars. Now, this comes from an article from TalkSport that Alex McCarthy wrote. And a week later, after apparently he voiced his criticism of Drew McIntyre not shaking hands with the mid-card and under, Sheamus called him out in the trainer's room vocally about his issues. And then during a scuffle, allegedly, Sin Cara laid out Sheamus. I think that was a story relayed by Conan. Yeah, that was a story relayed by Conan. So who knows the truthfulness, the truthiness of it.
Yeah.
The veracity of it.
So okay. So there was the original Sin Cara.
Okay.
And then Hunico signed in 2009, debuted in 2011 as Sin Cara. This is from Wikipedia. Temporary replacing the original performer of the character. And then when the original Sin Cara returned, the two feuded.
Yeah, they did Dark Sin Cara, right?
Yeah. And then Hunico lost a mask versus match, and that's when he started wrestling under the name Hunico.
Okay.
But then after the original Sin Cara was released in 2013, Hunico was Sin Cara again.
Okay. So who was the original Sin Cara? Who was the first guy?
His name was Luis Uribe.
That sounds familiar.
And Hunico is Jose Rodriguez.
So I guess they were at a certain point both Mysticos. Because
Yes.
Luis Uribe he's Mystico now.
All right.
Yeah. That's so confusing. So anyways,
It
getting
is really
back to
confusing.
Sin Cara 2. Of course, we all know about him throwing a soda can at Simon Gotch.
Mm-hmm.
Simon Gotch talked about him having a soda can thrown at him. Scuffle was broke out then. And then MLW Radio, a couple of years, I think it was like 2016, claimed that there was a fight between Sin Cara 2 and Ring of Jericho champion Y2J on an overseas tour, like in Europe, where Sin Cara allegedly knocked Jericho out cold. But then everybody denied that, like all parties involved denied it happened. And even a couple hours after that rumor broke, Jericho released a video of his face with no bruises or marks or anything. So who knows if that's not true. And then I think Jericho, like a couple weeks later, kind of made light of it by wearing a Sin Cara mask in the crowd to trick Rollins or somebody. I forgot who it was.
Yeah, I remember that.
And Sin Cara afterwards, like, no, we're totally cool. Everything's great. He even asked to borrow my mask for this segment. So who knows whether or not that actually happened. In any event, throwing a soda can at Simon Gotch and allegedly knocking out Sheamus, or might be enough to keep that Sin Cara from coming back. But honestly, the Sin Cara character, I know it was like a project for Triple H. That's what I had always read.
Yeah,
that
apparently
Triple H,
like the character sold a lot of merch.
Oh, did he?
That's what I remember hearing. Yeah,
Nobody ever seems to like want to see a Sin Cara back though. Like they never really gave him a character. He was just dude under mask.
Yeah, I know.
And they never did anything else with that. So yeah, I don't know. But yeah, the guy who's just going, and then the great thing is after he got released from WWE and was under a no compete, he showed up like a week later as Sin Cara in AAA.
Yeah, pretty much.
Which is kind of great. But I always got the feeling WWE's like, whatever. Like, what we can do? Oh, man. So, yeah, Sin Cara 2. I don't know about 1. Let me see if Mystico had any problems with WWE.
Sin Cara 1 is now wrestling as... It was Mystices, wasn't it?
No. Maybe he has gone by Mystices. I thought he just goes by Mystico now.
Caristico.
Oh, Caristico. Okay.
That's what it is.
All right. So there you go. Yeah. So he had also Caristico, Luis Uribe, claimed after he got released that he owned the Sin Cara character.
Oh.
And yet the other guy who was released tried to use it in AAA, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's so confusing.
Yes, it is. It is very confusing.
In any event, I don't think they're going to bring Sin Cara, the character, back at all.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
Anyways, let's move on to a much less confusing, a much more simple person. Right, number 3.
3.
Ryback. I meant simple as in simple to break down his story.
Oh, okay.
Not that
Good,
he's
good.
a simpleton, Larson.
So a little background on Ryback, some Ryback background, if you will. Signed with WWE in 2005 after competing in 2004. Tough Enough, part of Nexus when that faction debuted. 2010, broke his ankle. He was out like for a year plus. Re-debuted as Ryback in April of 2012. Won 38 bouts, and that led him to take on CM Punk at Hell in the Cell 2012 in just an abysmal match.
Yeah.
And it was the Shield that powerbombed Ryback through the announce table when that faction debuted. Ryback had some modest success in WWE, eventually got his release in 2016. Ryback said that he was frustrated with his creative and was, trying to get equal pay for talents. Of course, since his release, Ryback has released a line of nutritional supplements and has done some Twitch streaming. And then on one edition of his show, he stated that he would be open to WWE return under one condition. These transcripts are from Sportskeeda. He said, quote, "I'll be very open to going back to WWE if they were sold. I've always been very honest. If Vince is out of there and there's new leadership, I will be very interested in revisiting that because that will be beneficial for me as a brand and as a performer going back to where I'm known from, where I built an audience that already knows me. However, I don't know if that interest would be mutual." I didn't see anything about him necessarily having a bad relationship with Triple H, but he seemed to have, at best, an uneven relationship with his own Twitter followers because he posted a poll there about a year or so ago. Hey, if I were to come back, where should I go? WWE, NXT, AEW, I think Impact was on there. Retire. Yeah, the first time we did the poll, Retire won handily. He did it again, saying, please don't vote for Retire. I don't know why he just didn't put Retire on there. And this time, WWE NXT won. Retire finished in second.
Wow. Well, there you go. Well, they did what he asked them to. Here's the thing. I think he should form a tag team with Hangman Adam Page as the empty-headed dumb fucks.
Oh, there you go.
Because CM Punk could not stand Ryback. He blamed in the CM Punk Colt Cabana podcast. Of course, Punk blamed Ryback for being a dangerous worker. Said that at one point, he says, in a tag match with Daniel Bryan, Ryback intentionally kicked him and broke his ribs. And there's actually, this is on Squared Circle. There's like video of it. I'm not gonna play it here on the podcast, obviously, but I'm watching it right now. So yeah. But yeah, they had CM Punk and Ryback had a storied rivalry. I think they did Hell in a Cell like 2 years in a row.
Yeah, they
once
did.
When I think it was Hell in a Cell. Once when Punk was a good guy, and then the next year I think he was the bad guy, or vice versa.
I think it wasn't it Punk and Heyman?
What was it? The first year, like Punk and Heyman were together. The second year, Ryback and Heyman were together, or vice versa, something like that. In any event, all three of those guys were involved with each other in these feuds. I'm pretty sure. But we did some.
So 2013, it was Punk versus Ryback and Heyman.
Okay. And then a year earlier, Heyman was with
heel.
Punk.
It was heel Punk, yeah.
So Heyman was with him, yeah. Okay,
yeah.
So yeah, that was an epic rivalry for the ages, much like Hogan and Andre. So yeah, I would be shocked. I would actually be shocked, shell shocked,
if you will.
If Ryback and if WWE wanted Ryback back, it's kind of surprising that Ryback didn't do anything else in wrestling, really. So I don't know why that ever was. He was just waiting for the right opportunity. I always felt that Braun Strowman, because he never went to I know he did Control Your Narrative, but that's kind of all he did. I mean, I know he showed up at that Ring of Honor pay-per-view as part of Control Your Narrative, but I always felt that Braun was just waiting for WWE to call him back.
Pretty much.
And I wonder if Ryback was the same way. They'll call me back.
Maybe.
And they just never made that call.
The call never came.
Yeah, that could be. And maybe I have no idea, but somebody who's gone from WWE, I thought I remember him having kind of a heftier price tag.
Yes. Yeah, that's the thing is when he left. I remember that as well, that his price tag for appearances was pretty high.
Yeah. And yeah, I guess people just didn't think they'd be able to get their money back on the investment. I don't know. I don't want Ryback to come down on us and give me a shell shock. But yeah, in any event, I don't really see that happening.
No, I don't see it happening.
I would be I would legit. A lot of things shock me in wrestling. A lot of things don't really shock me because of how crazy things are now. That would legitimately shock me.
Same. Shell shock you.
It would shell shock me. Oh, man. All right. How are we going to talk about this one? Number 2. Velveteen Dream.
So let's start in August, I guess. So following news that he was arrested, Velveteen Dream, Patrick Clark, was arrested multiple times in August of this year, 2022. Fightful Select reached out to sources in WB who talked extensively about how Patrick Clark was a headache while with the company. Clark was released by WWE in May of 2021, but prior to that, his tenure with NXT was seemingly fraught with several incidents. Apparently, there was an arrest warrant issued for Clark, and then I guess retracted in 2019 after he smashed a car window. He was taken off NXT TV following a car accident in 2020, and I believe that was around the same time there were some allegations made against him. According to Fightful, Clark's cocaine use was a, quote, open secret and, quote, long rumored to be a reason for his quiet suspension during his NXT run. And then EC3 accused Clark of setting up his cell phone to record people using the bathroom during a house party at EC3's home. So one of Fightful's...
That's a party foul.
Yes. So one of Fightful's sources told them that, quote, it would require a miracle for a situation to come about that would result in Velveteen Dream being rehired by WWE. They also confirmed that despite Dream's social media teases, there were no plans or discussions to bring him back to the company upon the new regime. Another source told Fightful that, quote, it would be a public relations nightmare that the new regime wasn't interested in.
Remember how over he was back in like 2018?
Mm-hmm.
Like, man, the sky honestly was the limit. He was a phenomenal wrestler. He was one of the most interesting, unique characters that we had seen. He was one of the most exciting things about NXT.
His match against Aleister Black was awesome.
It was awesome. Whenever he'd have every takeover, he'd have a really interesting outfit that was provocative or controversial or whatever. It was a real bummer to find out, that there was quite a bit of stuff going on there that, that would lead to him being released by WWE and never being touched again. And it's disappointing that somebody with so much just God-given talent, would end up like that. But yeah, I mean, given everything, all that, and then, we didn't just I don't feel comfortable talking about some of the stuff that was out there as well. That, it's not shocking at all that this he'll never be picked up by WWE. Be shocked if he ended up in AEW or anywhere else, to be honest with you.
I'd be pretty surprised if he showed up anywhere. Yeah.
But yeah, an absolute shame because he was a star in the making, man. He was absolutely a star in the making. Let's finish on this one. Number one. Alberto Del Rio. Listen to the rolling R right there.
Good. You used to do that all the time.
Pretty good.
Still got it. You still got it. So, every now and again, Alberto Del Rio will say in some interview or tweet something, either inferring or just straight up saying, I talked to somebody at WWE. I'm going to come back soon.
Yeah,
I'm going to return.
Yeah.
And yet it never happens.
I'm still waiting for that to happen.
Still waiting for that. I think we'll be waiting for a while longer. Since his release from the company the second time in 2016, Del Rio has had several run-ins with the law. Most recently, 2020. And in late 2021, amidst talk from Del Rio that he was nearing a WWE return, Fightful Select reported that there had been no talks between Alberto and WWE, with one source mentioning, could you imagine if we let go of some of the people we did only to bring him in? There's no fucking way that happens.
Yeah, dude. I mean, that's a good way to put it. They've released a lot of people high on character, but Vince McMahon just for whatever reason didn't find anything to use them creatively. Alberto has time and time again over the years, for every time that he claims that he's going to have another run, not just in the WWE but as champion in WWE. He calls out Triple H as any number of vulgarities.
Oh, that Periscope, yeah.
Yeah, there's a Periscope when Periscope was a thing.
Yeah, I remember that.
And yeah, there were times in WWE, there was like a couple small windows in WWE where I thought he was used all right. I liked when he used to come out with the cars. When you and I saw him fighting Moose in Impact.
That was the only time I've ever watched Del Rio wrestle. I was like, oh, I get it now.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And you and I had both speculated that maybe that was part of the thing. Maybe because I never, there are some people we've talked about him, and Velveteen Dream was one of them who had camera charisma.
Yeah.
You could really get that star power through the camera.
Mm-hmm.
Del Rio has that in person.
Yes.
In person, he comes off as very charismatic and has kind of a magnetic personality. But on camera, I never really got that from him. And maybe some of that could be chalked up to how he was booked. But I actually thought his time in Impact, because I was watching Impact then, his creative was as good as it ever was.
Yeah.
I thought it was pretty good. But
isn't that when they got his name on his Tron wrong for his debut?
Okay, yeah. That wasn't part of his creative, though. That was just one of the many production errors that Impact is known for.
And they have to redo it when there's nobody in the arena?
Something like that, man. I think wasn't it like they got his name wrong and it was his return?
Yeah.
And then they rewound it, but there were still people there, but just the reaction was muted because they're like, what the fuck are they doing?
Yeah.
They're like, you got no pop. They're like, this is confusing. But yeah, and on top of that, obviously his legal issues, and some of the stuff behind that, it would truly be shocking.
It really would be. It really would be
absolutely shocking to see Alberto Del Rio anywhere near WWE. I don't know what's like the latest. Like, has he done stuff for CMLL lately?
Wasn't he, like within the last year or two? He was supposed to do a match, I think, for AAA, and then it fell through.
I remember that. Yeah. Yeah.
He still wrestles on occasion independently. We'll see his name on shows from time to time.
Yeah. No. I'm looking at the latest on him. Oh, that's a sports. So apparently he discussed the changes in WWE after the exit of WWE, or of Vince McMahon, rather.
Oh yeah.
One of those changes ain't going to be him coming back.
Nope.
Oh man. Nope. Okay. I'm not being diplomatic right now. I got to be diplomatic. So I don't see that happening, man.
It's not going to happen. No.
Alberto El Patron back in WWE. Anyways, that's going to do it for us today. Is there anybody we missed? Anybody you guys understand? Oh man, yeah. Was you pointing?
No, I'm disagreeing with you.
Oh yeah,
yes.
yeah.
Please do that. Leave
let
comments,
us know in the
stuff.
comments, and then also hit that like button and the subscribe button and the notify bell, so you're always getting your new Going In Rock content. Today's Friday, so hopefully you guys had a good Thanksgiving.
Yes.
Hopefully you have a good weekend. Tomorrow, if you're watching this on the Friday that it actually comes out and not months from now, tomorrow, War Games Survivor Series. We're going to be doing our live reactions to that and then our recap afterwards. So thanks everybody for watching. We appreciate it. Till next time, we'll talk to you later.
Goodbye.